Talking about writing in 3, 2, 1. Well, if it's Tuesday, you know what that means. It means it's time for Comic Book School Live and all the fun and shenanigans that come with the craft and business of making comics. My name is Buddy Scalera, and I am a comic book writer and the founder of the Comic Book School. And I am joined by my lovely host, Mike Fasolo, 3-time Emmy Award-winning television screenwriter, most famous for his work on Robot Chicken. He is an extraordinary person, and I have to tell you, Mike, this is an extraordinary night because we're actually going to be continuing our series on writing, where we now will dive deeply into a unique piece of software and go live with it with a guest from the AutoCrit software. Does that tickle your fancy?
It does tickle my fancy. It sounds pretty exciting.
It does. I didn't know I was going to say tickle your fancy until I said tickle your fancy.
Will they demonetize us for that?
They will demonetize us for literally everything. I'm going to pull up my world famous slides here. So we're going to be talking with AutoCrit, software that helps you write better comics. But Mike, first, big news. We have hit 10,000. 10,000 followers, and did on that one. But I thought, you know what, Mike, if you noticed up there, something was wrong.
What's wrong?
What's wrong?
I can't. It's too small. Let me blow it up.
Well, it's pointing to the 10,000 hours because it is kind of small. But do you know what was wrong with it, Mike?
What?
I'm going to show you what was wrong with it and then show you now what's right with it, because it is now been corrected
to 10.
To write Comic Book School, Buddy Scalera, and Mike.
Oh, well, that's nice. Thanks,
After years of injustices,
I've tried so hard to get on that list.
Yeah, you're on the leaderboard now. So it felt a little unfair that I had not had you up there all this time, but you are now officially on there.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. They only have 50 characters, so I wanted to put a little bit longer, which was Comic Book School Live, conceived by, nurtured, built by, and loved by Buddy Scalera, and Mike Fasolo stops by.
But, you know, you got to do what you can do.
It's all I was able to do. But your name up there in lights.
That's much appreciated.
You like that, Mike?
I do. I also like that Andrew Campbell is watching from Australia. G'day, mate.
What? Do the Australian accent again.
I just did.
No, do it again. I like to see it.
Andrew Campbell. G'day from Australia.
That's it. He had a whole thing.
He said, "Oh, glad I could catch this show live." But I'm getting better.
All right, and now Gatilla had something to add. What do you get?
Mike Fasolo.
One day we'll play the clip of the spokes model that I put on our original show, who couldn't pronounce your name. Mike Fasolo.
Oh, Andrew. That hurts me. Crikey.
Crikey. So, Mike, tonight we're going to be, you two are too much. We are. So, good night, everybody. Fasolo, no, never did. Okay, so Mike, tonight we're going to be talking about the stuff. Hold on, let me pull up the stuff.
Pull up the stuff.
Okay, so you can see formerly Comic Book School by Buddy Scalera, now with Mike Fasolo. For those of you who are following along with the bouncing ball, we are doing the Tools series currently. Right now, we had originally done Milanote. People loved Milanote. You can find that in our channel. Last week, we went into the Story Engine, which we both got copies of it. We went through my version of the Story Engine. You have a different variant. We'll do a follow-up on how you can use it to write stories. That was last week. Seems to be getting a good response. And tonight we'll be showing AutoCrit, which is something that we'll show in the Chrome browser. Worth noting, we are not accepting any money from any of these. These are not sponsors. This is just purely for our love of you guys. And if you want to also check it out, that's the Story Engine that we did last week. And then next time we'll do world building. And then tonight, AutoCrit is going to be taking us through. This is just the login screen. We will show you what the login looks like. Mike and I both uploaded stories, and they were generous enough to give a free promotional discount link, which you can copy, screenshot, I'll put into the chat and whatnot. And again, disclaimer, we don't get anything off of this. You could see there's no money going to us
Links
from anywhere ever. So and that's it, Mike. So we're gonna be getting into it. So again, the basic series was a couple weeks ago, where you did a full issue page breakdown, a plot breakdown, full script, and revisions. And if you want to talk about high anxiety, high tightrope act, you did that live typing.
That's what I do. Type 500 words a minute.
Nobody does that. Okay, so we're into AutoCrit, and because we are doing AutoCrit, I will take this screen down, remove, and I will introduce you to Dan. Oh shoot, what's his name again? I gotta look up his name, Mike.
Daniel Solomon Kaplan.
Daniel Solomon Kaplan. Please welcome Daniel Solomon Kaplan.
Hello, how are you? Wow, studio applause. I love it.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm on the Dick Van Dyke show or something.
So, Daniel, you are from AutoCrit. Welcome to the show. Where are you dialing in from, Daniel?
I'm actually right near Walt Disney World. I'm in Central Florida. So,
what are the other storytelling capitals of the world, huh, Mike?
Right.
Yep. The mouse.
And Daniel, what is your role there at AutoCrit?
Yeah, well, we're a very small team here at AutoCrit, so I do a lot of things, but probably most of you would be familiar if you've seen me before. I do our YouTube content, so every week I'm doing live streams, and I also host a lot of workshops throughout the year and do some story coaching and things like that. But Daniel, I do a lot more.
You told me a secret that I promised I wouldn't tell anybody, but I'm going to say it anyway. You are also a novelist, and you're using AutoCrit to renovel your novel?
Yes, right. Very novel of me. Yeah, no, I'm going back through. Yes, exactly. I also a bad joke. I used to work at the Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World. So there you go. There's a web series right now you can actually check out. It's Fixing a Broken Series, because a decade ago, I actually did write a book, and I did all the editing in-house. I did hire somebody to do a little bit of copy editing, but I just threw it out there to see what the market would say. And actually didn't hate it. I joke around that I am better rated on Goodreads than Twilight, so there you go. Something. Not a lot of reviews though, but it's there. My claim to fame. But anyway, now that I have AutoCrit, in the last 10 years, I've actually been spending a lot more time as a story analyzer, like a script doctor, things like that. I've worked a lot in community theater and things like that, just helping other artists. And now that I'm on the AutoCrit team and have all these great tools on my disposal, I've been going back in preparation, because we actually are doing this whole big novel 90 challenge for everybody at AutoCrit starting next week. And so I thought, hey, I should actually finish my series that people have been in suspense for about 9 years and want to kill me. So hopefully whoever is sticking the voodoo pins in me that's causing my backaches in the middle of the night will stop. They'll get their answer, and we'll be good.
So Daniel, we were going to go through the AutoCrit tool, but I feel like we should just go through the last 10 years of your life as a writer, and leave no detail out. We'll just spend the
That could be very dangerous.
actually sounds pretty good. Start from the jungle ride and lead on out from there. So
that Weird Al song, the Skipper Dan, that's actually mine. I get royalties every time you play it on Spotify. I'm kidding, but
I did not know that. See, we learn something new every day. Mike, what's going on in the chat room? It seems like people are doing the chatty thing. So before we pull up our screen, anything?
I'm not seeing anything new unless something's wrong with my feed.
No, nothing there. I guess people abandoned us.
Yep.
All right. Well, why don't we just start from here, Mike? You're already logged in to AutoCrit, and it looks like you sort of jumped to the end. You've jumped to Act 3 already.
Yeah, of course. I wanted everyone to see the analysis of the report.
Well, why don't we start at the
Nolan style storytelling going on here?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, this is Tarantino. You sort of started there. You go. You started at the end. So, Mike, talk to us. What are exactly we looking at here? And or Daniel, you might know a little something about this. Talk to us. What are we looking at right here?
Yeah, this is your home page. We call it the hub, right? This is where you log in and you get to find out everything that's going on. So on the right hand side, you can see the community events there, right? Like Hook 'em, that's going to be a fun event we're doing tomorrow that you can give your opening line of your book, and then we just tell you, were we hooked, were we not, what kind of promises did you make, what genre do we think we in? And we're just doing community events like this all the time. It is part of the membership. As much as we are software and we're tools, we're also a community. You can see there's a community on the left-hand side there, a little icon for it. It's a community of our members. And then, of course, we have the Academy side. Like I said, I do a lot of things on there, workshops and different things. So we're just a little bit of everything. We really want to be a home for writers in as many purposes as we can fulfill.
Well, that's good, and I think the first area that we want to explore is this writer's desk. So Mike and I both have the opportunity to upload our stories and whatnot, and I think it's important to note. And we're going to go on screen here for this one. Okay, so comic book creators and many creators are concerned about AI. And we talked about this a little bit, and I just want you to help us to understand how AutoCrit works and the role of AI, what it does, and also what it does not do. Can you just help us with that, Daniel?
Sure, absolutely. We're really here for artists. So we're trying to provide, all the tools that we have at our disposal in order to make it a better experience for writers. But ultimately, we are here for writers, right? Like, we are here to help you write. I often joke around. It's like we call ourselves AutoCrit, not auto-write, right? Our goal is to be that analyst, that little voice on your shoulder or whatever, little developmental editor type beta reader in your pocket, sometimes we call it. But, as much as you're going to get advice, insights, different ideas and things like that, again, it's not one of those things that it's going to write a paragraph for you or things like that. That's not what we do. And in fact, currently right now, Amazon has its guidelines about what constitutes as AI assisted versus AI generative. And we really like to stay within that assisted category because, that way as artists, where you're at. So that's where we are as a tool.
Yeah. So this is, Mike, this is not initially what I thought it was. I thought it would help write all my comic books for me and me not have to do any work anymore. I was a little disappointed that I still had to do the work.
Yeah, so you just type in a sentence and it does it the rest for you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was like I opened up a thing. I opened up and I thought I'd put in a prompt and then just come back in a few hours and 100,000 words would be done. And it actually needed me to put my own writing in there.
Yeah, well, that's what I think is great because it gives you, I think, just enough help. And when you're going through the analysis of your stories, it gives you just enough that you're like, okay, now I know where I can take it, what I can do, and where else I can go. That's why it's fun because it gives you that inspiration.
What I was calling this tool, Daniel, was Mike, because everything I write, I just give to Mike and I ask him for feedback. And basically now AutoCrit has replaced Mike in my life.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, I've been as much I'm on YouTube and things like that, but I've also been part of a lot of the processes as well. Like I said, we have a small team, right? And so you know, I've been involved in some of the underworkings of it, and some of it is based on, you know, me as a developmental editor, and, you know, how do I approach a piece and how do I approach it? And again, you know, if you go to a good developmental editor, they're not going to be like, here's your book back. I made all of these changes for you. Isn't this great? Right. What they're going to do is they're going to say, I didn't quite understand this. Is this really what you intended? You know, things like that. And then you get to make those final decisions. And that's
Yeah,
the same
Daniel, I am literally, I know that there's generative AI out there. I am literally so lazy. I can't even be bothered writing a prompt. Like as it turns out, I'm just a reader. I'm not even a writer, but Mike is a writer. And Mike, you're going to show us what writerly things you had done. I see that you've added a few things to the screen here. I'm going to actually make it a little bit bigger by going like this. So Mike, tell us what we're looking at here.
Okay, these are the first one is a book that a friend of mine and I wrote a couple of years ago. And the rest of these are just
Is that
sections.
the book that I didn't finish reading?
This is the book that you didn't finish reading, yes.
What was wrong with it? Because I didn't finish reading it.
Well, AutoCrit did finish reading it, and it gave me some good feedback. The other three up there are just...
Was there a button there about what Buddy doesn't like?
Yeah. Some of these are just chapters. Some of them are just beginnings of things, just ideas, really.
So you literally uploaded the docx file.
I did, yes.
So Daniel, real quick, is AutoCrit currently ripping off Mike and saving all of his words? He is a 3-time Emmy award-winning writer. What should we know about uploading files to AutoCrit?
Yeah, no, obviously we're not looking at our members' files like that. We certainly do save them for you though, because, you know, we have so many members that, you know, they'll change devices, they'll log in different places, and so therefore you can just access it. You know, it's all online, so it's up on the servers and things like that. But no, there's nothing being trained on it or anything like that.
So that's really important. There's nothing being trained on Mike's words. Does AutoCrit get to know Mike, or is it sort of a general developmental editor role that doesn't get specific to Mike?
Yeah, it's not necessarily tailored specifically, unless there are some things I can show you later on, depending on what you're looking for, because you do have the opportunity, depending on what reporting you're consulting, as to what kind of data set you're looking at. So I'll show you later when you get into some of the reporting what I mean, but we have ways that we have numerically, you know, say how close you are to the general trend in certain authors or certain genres, and then that you get to decide. That wouldn't be based on Mike, but that could be based on something like, well, I write a cozy mystery, or I write sci-fi, or I want to write with this sort of style or something.
Is there a setting, Daniel, in AutoCrit that will stop Mike from writing time travel stories?
I don't know. I wish, though. I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah, I would. Daniel. Daniel, I am so with you. I am so with you.
It was so funny. All right.
That gets a full round of applause. All right, Mike, go into the continue writing. Show us what the crit gave you.
Okay.
That's great. I'm with you too.
Let's see. Now, I would just to show
why
everyone.
Don't I see anything?
Well, you just see should just see the chapter.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's a thing.
The front matter.
It's a thing. I can do the analysis.
Show us the analysis, Mike.
Okay. The analysis can give you a fiction analyzer, a nonfiction analyzer, the summary report, which is what I'm a big fan of. And this compares it right now. It's being compared to the science fiction genre.
Now, what I thought was interesting, you can actually compare yourself against world famous authors as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
These are all.
What this is it's looking at some of their mechanical, word choice sort of things. This isn't concept. So, like, if you write a genre that's very different. So let's say you like, Andy Weir, but you write cozy mystery, and Andy Weir doesn't write cozy mystery or something. It's not going to matter because it's based on your adverbs, your sentence structure, your
All right,
pacing,
go to
things like
Andy
that.
Weir because I've read both of his books. So go to Andy Weir
Andy
and
Weir's an
select.
interesting case too because he's got quite a lot of interesting stylistic choices. For one, he
Now
writes very
do your
focused.
analysis against Andy Weir. Go Fiction Analyzer. No, go to Fiction Analyzer. There you go. Now, what I think is cool is I love that it's. Oh, look at that, Mike! I didn't know that. Go ahead, give it a shot.
We'll scroll down. I think it's done, but because you have that preamble, that's not something it's going to analyze because that's just a title.
It's working.
Yeah, it's slow.
It's looking at your whole book right now.
All right, we'll just wait the hour.
I have one pulled up too if you want to. Like we can do the whole kitchen thing where we just pull out the cookies when they're done already.
But in the meantime, what other tabs are there, Mike? You want to go through the tabs and just show that while AutoCrit is the hamster's running on the wheel?
It's taken forever. They have planning.
Go ahead.
And that can help you plan, obviously. They got pacing, which dictates, how your book compares to others in the genre. Dialogue.
Can he click on these, Daniel? Will the work continue in the background?
While that's going on, I wouldn't. But again, I could pull up something if you want, Switch. Or
Daniel, pull up something.
No, let me pull up something, Daniel. Because yours is probably already good. So I'm going to pull up mine. We maintain complete control here, Daniel. All right, so I'm going to show you mine. So what I did was I took a nonfiction. I took a comic book. What was interesting was I think it struggled a little bit with comic books, Daniel, and I have a theory about that.
Okay.
So I was here and I took Apocalypse Boulevard, which I'm pretty sure everybody has read already, but it did have all this kind of interesting prompts and whatnot. But I go back to my Apocalypse Boulevard and I go to continue writing, and you can see this is the actual script. But what it didn't know how to do was know that, like a screenplay, it was broken down. It had descriptions and then there were captions. So I think a little bit of it was, based on what it knew. And see, now it's doing this. Oh, so it did the analysis, which I thought was very on target. So it was able to analyze, knew the conflicts, the internal and external conflicts, potential improvements for conflicts. And I was like, that's a really good point. And then a little bit on the characters, a little bit on the world building. It told me I had no contradictions. It did go into the timeline analysis and was accurate, at least for this particular issue. There was not a lot of foreshadowing because this is just a real time aspect of it. Plot thread tracking and genre analysis. I thought they did a great job on this. The summary report, again, it struggles a little bit because it doesn't know that what I'm doing is a comic book script. Daniel, any thoughts on that? Because I do know that, I should have gotten 100 out of 100 on everything.
Right. Actually, 100 is not what you're looking for, because if you think about it, what it's doing is it is comparing how similar you are to, the data set. And so you would not want to actually be the most stereotypical perfect example of anything, or you're going to start to be like Tom Hanks in Polar Express. You'll have the uncanny valley effect. You will not be writing very personality wise. You will be very flat and very alien.
Right. And I agree that's what you think, but I want 100 on everything. And I appreciate that, but I want 100 out of 100. So this is a marketing book that I had worked on, and
this must have been very exciting to read.
Yeah. Oh no, it's as dry as a bone, Mike. And yet I got like an A+ on mine, I think. Oh, the summary report. I got an A+ on my summary report. I didn't know if it would work well on fiction. So Daniel, it works on fiction,
You mean nonfiction?
nonfiction.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we have examples of nonfiction. And as you see, that nonfiction story analyzer, a nonfiction analyzer. So obviously, when you're looking at a story analyzer, it's going to do things like you pointed out, like the foreshadowing and the plot thread tracking and characters. For nonfiction, it's going to do things like who's potentially your audience? Are you using inside baseball terms people aren't going to understand? Are you being persuasive? Is an argument even being made? That sort of thing. Which, of course, is more beneficial for nonfiction. Although it can be fun to throw fiction into nonfiction, because like we did that with Moby Dick, and it was like, clearly this is a book designed for cetacean hunters. It's very fun.
Well, I will tell you that after seeing this, I decided to cancel my subscription because I wanted 100 on everything, Daniel, and I still wanted, like, this is the greatest business book ever conceived, and it didn't give me that, so I'm probably just going to cancel my subscription. But I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So, Mike, it looks like your thing is on the screen again.
I'm still analyzing.
Yeah, it's about 70,000. That's a whole book. So yeah, it'll take about 8 minutes or something.
I probably should have done a smaller chapter.
Yeah, if you scroll down, you can already see some of the results. You don't have to wait. Like, you can't. The preamble, like I said, there's not much to analyze because it's just going to ignore it. It says it's less than 200 words. So keep going, because that's just the front matter. That's just Sky Master, right? So see, you can see that the other ones are populating. It populates as it goes. You don't have to wait until it's finished to start seeing.
Oh, see, I didn't even know how to use this thing.
Yeah. So, of course, it's going to start telling you what's in the chapter. Like there, it's going to tell you what the point of view is, who the characters were, what some of the elements are. It's going to tell you what your conflicts are. Of course, that's really helpful if you just don't have a lot of conflicts, if you just make it an exposition chapter, which is not the best, of course. And it'll tell you where you have potential to add things. Obviously, I'm not criticizing you of doing such. I'm just saying.
No, you would never criticize me.
And
leave that to me, Daniel.
And then when you get to deep point of view, right, a lot of authors in this day and age like to write in a deeper point of view. So you're really in the shoes of the character. So it's not a little did they know, right? No narrator intrusion. So it brings up things like that. Even like one time I had a description where somebody was eating a candy bar, and it's like they really wouldn't notice they're particularly eating a candy bar in that moment. And I'm like, yeah, maybe they wouldn't. That is a little weird. Why am I pointing that out, right? And so things like that. For sure. Yeah, if you keep going, you have the world building. So it tells you what kind of world building is going on in there.
Wow, look at that. No specific mentions of flora or fauna. I like this is
so yeah,
amazing.
If you cared, if you're like, I need flowers, where am I? You can start putting them in, right?
But I think what you see here, Mike, is the kind of stuff that is objective. It has no skin in the game. Like, I don't care if I hurt your feelings, but other people might care if they hurt your feelings.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is it doesn't know. So like, it doesn't look at the whole book and then do this. It does it chapter by chapter. So the foreshadowing events, it doesn't actually know what is foreshadowing. It's going to guess, and it's guessing with like its best intentions, kind of like how I would as a developmental editor. Like, I'll often leave these notes like, did you mean to ask this question? Did you mean to set this up? And maybe you did, and maybe you didn't. Maybe it could turn into a red herring. Maybe you should actually turn into a plot. Maybe you should ditch it because you're going to have an unfulfilled promise, right? So
what's great about this, the genre analysis, is that it knows that this is a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So it throws in, it's definitely a sci-fi thing, but then it was the humor infused throughout the chapter. I'm like, how does the AI know that this is supposed to
how does it know that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clever, right? And that's actually a really good point, because that genre analysis can be really interesting, because as you're writing your chapters, some will kind of go a different direction or not. And sometimes you'll do an intentional tonal shift, right? You'll have a literal chapter that's like, this should be infused with horror, right? Or this should be infused with romance or something. And sometimes you do that just by accident, and then it'll start reading it and you're like, oh yeah, I guess they could interpret it that. I don't know, maybe I didn't mean it to be that. Now,
could
romance is a common one it can read into, and you didn't.
Could it help Mike if Mike wanted to play in a different genre, or or is there anything that like if he was like, this is really good, but I would want to sell this to Cinemax, could it help him to convert it to something that was a little more spicy?
Yeah, I mean, right now we don't have a specific way for you to prompt it and say like, if I wanted to go in this direction, what should I do? It's more or less going to assume that what it is what you want and how to make it the best version of itself. So it's not trying to read into it and being like, well, you wrote a sci-fi, but really it would be better if it was a Western, don't you think? Right. Now that could be interesting, but we don't have that right now.
All right, but how is this thing working, Daniel? Like, I'm not fully even understanding how the hamster that's running on the wheel in the background is actually like, what's happening?
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things, some of which are proprietary, but yeah, it uses a combination of a lot of different methods. That's all I think I'm allowed to say. So don't want anyone to shut off this transmission. But
we got a couple of questions here. Oh, that's not it. Here it is.
Is there a maximum amount of words it can analyze at a time? Yeah, there really aren't a lot of restrictions on that, except that it can do like the chapters. The chapters can't be more than 10,000 words, which is a pretty long chapter. So that also means if you just have a one piece thing, like if you're just doing a script and it's 10,000 words, you will need to separate it into 10,000 word chunks because otherwise it won't read it. And so you'll have to basically add some chapters. You know, if you put in there chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, the system just automatically finds everything. If you're putting in a screenplay, like I just did it, just recently, just as a test, I put in one of my old musical scripts, and I had to basically say all the scenes were chapters so that it would divide it up correctly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is there like a version that you can just plug in a screenplay that it'll actually analyze it broken down by other movies?
Yeah, I mean, the story analyzer will in fact work as that. In terms of the other things like the word choice and stuff like that, that is a very different medium, obviously. And so like how many adverbs you're using and your sentence structure, that's not really going to compare naturally to like, do you write like J.R.R. Tolkien? Because obviously Lord of the Rings script and J.R.R. Tolkien, not similar in terms of their that what's the words on the page, right? If you read the screenplay versus the prose, right? Very, very different. However, the story analyzer would in fact pick up everything. It would pick up, who the protagonist is, who the antagonist is, the conflicts of the moments and things like that. Like I said, you would just have to take that extra step of going through and flagging where your chapters are. It just won't do that automatically. It just looks for the chapter verbiage. Although, of course, you could always just go through and just find and replace scene with chapter or something and fix that.
Well, there's something to put into version 2.0.
No, it's true. Like we do know that, we have a lot of people that are reaching out to us in other mediums besides books. That's obviously where we got our start. But we have thought about trying to expand in different ways for sure.
And
so I appreciate that. Webcomics, everything sounds great. I love it.
So, all right. So, Mike, any other questions before we pull you back on screen there?
Let me see. Oh, English only. Is it only
only for now? Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So not Klingon?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Someone will do a Klingon version at some point.
Navi or whatever. No, not quite.
All right, what else you got, Mike? Any other queries from the audience?
No other queries at this time.
All right. So are you able to, is your report done?
Well, the report is pretty much done.
Yeah, that 3% is just because that beginning it doesn't have anything to look at, so it's good.
Now,
if you went to the overall and the character, then you could run those. Those won't take as long because it's going to look at what's in the rest of it. In fact, you already have your overall. There you go. And so this will just look at the overall piece. So the timeline is great because it's literally just a list of everything that happens, which is just, if you want to talk about a lot of people who love to pants, right? And you know that at a certain point you have to, I know, right? A lot of writers or gardeners, as George R. Martin calls it, which sounds much more dignified than pantsing, right? Um, but if you're a gardener or a pantser, then you often have to reverse outline. And that's a real pain in the behind, because you have to
Yep.
literally be like, what in the world did I do? I did this drunken binge writing and now I'm woken up and what happened, right? And so what this does is it gives you all of that in like a nice one-stop
Now,
shop.
Mike,
And so
click on summary report. That was where you got that grade, right?
This is probably going to take a long time too.
no, it shouldn't. This is quick. This is where it's going to compare you against the
78,000
the
words.
genre of sci-fi. This doesn't take as long as the analyzer, because this is looking at, like I said, things like adverbs, sentence length, generic descriptions. It's a whole spectrum of different things, and this is where you have the opportunity to compare yourself against different genres, different authors, things like that. Just follow the bouncing ball for just another moment. It'll be done.
And this one I'm being compared to Andy Weir instead of just a general.
Yeah, I shouldn't have had you compared to Andy Weir. We should have just gone with what you had. All right. So what I found also is I did one that was with my flash fiction. So I'm going to pull that up real quick while Mike is on this. So I did flash fiction, which was I'll go to my analysis. My summary report should be pretty quick. It was under 1,000 words, but it did do that comparison report. Now, I would not be surprised if Mike's was dramatically better than mine, but obviously I was pretty
you can
impressed.
see some of the different data you have. You don't have any dialogue. You write very short paragraphs, is what it's showing you.
But does it tell me some things I should do?
There is,
Well, I
there is
mean,
a section that gives
question,
you.
right? It's really up to you. Do you care about the fact that your paragraphs are quite different than somebody else? Now, when you go to some of these other reports, like if you went to filler words or something like that, then what it's going to do is it's going to go down to the granular level, and it'll tell you like, what is your verbal tick? You know, we all have our verbal ticks or ums or whatever. When we write, we do them too, and so we'll have the that's or the veries or the justs. Words that aren't adding meaning. Sometimes we want to keep it for the cadence of the sentence, but it's helpful to know which ones you're overusing, right? And so, like, for example, if you clicked on like word choice or strong writing and you went in one of those, it'll start to go in that granular level, and it'll show you those sort of specifics. And so it'll say like,
mine went really
to
quick.
you're writing against, you're using just 10 more times than we would expect, or something like that.
And mine went really quick because I
very
short.
only 800 words, but
yeah, I mean, you didn't have a whole book. He was 78,000 words. I mean, 8 minutes, not bad. You're gonna take a lot longer than that to get it back from a beta.
Yeah, mine's done. If you want to pull it back up.
Oh, yours done?
So yeah, now it's being compared to Andy Weir. Look at this.
Yep.
Amazing. 82.
Yeah.
82 meaning what? What is 82? Is 82
That's
good?
like it's a percentage of similarity. Like, have you ever played like Mario Party and you've done like that circle where you have to like draw it around, right? And then it gives you like a little score of how close you were. That's the idea, right? You are that similar to the way that he would have written it, which, like I said, you wouldn't necessarily want to be 100% because you aren't anywhere. That'd be kind of weird, right? But the fact that you are somewhat similar, if you put in an old school work like, Beowulf or something, it would obviously be like in the 20s if you put, because it wouldn't be that readable, right? And that's the idea. You want to be in the ballpark, but not necessarily all the way. You'll notice that he has a bit more slow-paced paragraphs. I told you, Andy Weir is famous for the fact he writes extremely brisk. However, only 0.5% is very, very low in general for fiction. So that's why it's still a 93%. Shorter paragraphs overall, and you can see that nice little waterfall effect for the paragraphs by word count, which is what you're looking for, right? Average words per sentence. You write very short sentences, 7 words.
Pause here. So I think one of the things that, like, you can do a lot of these things in Microsoft Word or Fleisch Kincaid. No, go back up. Go back up. What you can't do, go back to the Andy Weir comparison. Yeah, there you go. What you can do is some Flesch Kincaid writing levels, and you can do, and some of these things you can do manually. What this does, Mike, I think is astonishing, is the ability to compare to authors that you like, or genres, or even compare it against another genre. Like you could compare this against romance, and I was playing around and I was like, wow, this is pretty wild. When then you start to understand the structure and style of other genres like romance that you would not ordinarily think of. And that was what was interesting to me.
Have you ever thought about feeding a John Scalzi? Who's that? I don't know who John Scalzi is.
John Scalzi writes funny sci-fi, a little bit like
I mean, I'll be not that specific author, but we have put in some very interesting examples, because obviously when you like stress test, right, we have put in some very unusual examples, particularly like for the story analyzer, just to see like, what does it do? You have a lot more dialogue than Andy Weir. Now, one of the reasons why that's probably the case is, to be honest, Andy Weir, just in terms of his concepts, like The Martian, doesn't have a lot of dialogue because that guy's alone on Mars a lot. So, and really the prose is very dialogue, right? Because he's doing all those video blogs, but it's not in quotes. So that's a little bit misleading based on the concept, right? But again, that would be one of the reasons why it's a little bit different there.
Well, and also Mike is a television writer, so his stock and trade is dialogue.
It's all dialogue.
Yeah, 43% is pretty high. I write a lot of dialogue too, because I come from the theatrical world.
So when you say you come from the theatrical world, is there?
I mean, not in like some grandiose way. I did community theater and whatnot.
Can you feed your musical in there, Daniel? You had said something about a musical. Could you feed your musical in there? But there's no comparison. Like you don't have currently structure to understand them.
Yeah, no, I mean, for something like poetry or something like that, like again, in terms of the, there isn't really the equivalent of sentence length, right? You have stanzas and things like that. So though that sort of reporting is not going to be as particularly beneficial, although it still matters. I mean, with musicals, you have a book, and you want to make sure that you're not overusing adverbs or filler words or anything, even though it's pretty much only dialogue, right? You often have a very little stage direction. But when it comes to the story analyzer, yeah, it's going to understand your characters, your plot, your foreshadowing, just like anything else.
All right, that's good. Now, Mike, real quick, go back all the way up to the top. One of the things that I was fascinated by, click the X, come out of this. Yeah, there you go. There was this planning section. Is this intended to help you get started, and would people start to write within here? So click Fiction Story Builder, Mike.
Well, it really can work either way, which is what's so fun about it, right? Because we know a lot of people are pantsers, right? But there are people that more are outliner, but this is really for anyone. So you can come in here and you maybe haven't written anything there on the left, right? You're just getting started, and you can throw in a premise and world building, and you can use this to just organize your thoughts, right? It's just a nice little template. You can organize your thoughts, and then it's just sitting there, and you have it on your right while you're writing on your left. Or perhaps you just start writing on the left, you're pantsing your idea, and you're like, whatever, a man is sitting on a bench in Central Park, and you're like, oh, this takes place in Central Park. And then you go over your general geography. This is in New York City, right? And then you can go back, and then as you do it, you're building. Now, what's nice about it is not only is it's a storing place for all those ideas, at any moment you can prompt it for more ideas if you want them. So that's what those little yellow buttons do. So if you have any bits of information in there, it will give you suggestions, and it takes into consideration everything that you've written. So like if you have written your entire book and you're stuck at your ending, and you have been tracking all of your beats, and then you're at the end point and you're like, I don't know what to do. You can just sit there and you'd be like, what are different things I could do? And it's just a great prompter. It gives you all these different possibilities. And if you're like, like a lot of our writers, it could be that you don't even like any of them, but they'll get you to something you do like, right? Because you're like, I hate that. Why? Oh, because it doesn't do that, and then you're off to the races. It just clears that clog, one way or the other, for sure.
Okay,
but again, it's only as much as you want it. You can use it as little or.
So, Mike, if you were to get out of a top left corner, get out of SkyMaster, completely get out of SkyMaster, go to the primary screen again. There you go. And you were just gonna start with a blank document. And you could go into planning.
Yep.
And this is where go to Fiction Story Builder. So if I were to Mike were to just start writing, would it would the story premise start to auto populate, or does it have to?
It does no, it does not auto populate, but it's very easy for you to keep track on the right hand side, right? You just bring it up when you need it. You go back to your writing. You can bring it back up. There you go. Go for a pigeon. Go on a wacky adventure, right? And then you can pick where potentially it's set if you care, or you can tell it to just set it somewhere, and you can hit that button.
Hit the button, Mike.
Let's see where it's going to put it. It's a sprawling city park, right? You know, and it says the gopher's burrowing skills are hindered by the rocky terrain, while the pigeon can easily navigate. You know.
Now, is this
like the story already?
You just did something here. Now, this is not writing; it's idea prompting. So, as far as AI goes, Mike still has to do the work.
Yes, right. And I will be honest, you know, it's going to pick essentially the path of least resistance, right? It's going to go for the best idea it can think of. The more you give it, you know, the more of those fields you've filled out, the more interesting and personalized and special your story is going to be. I know that last story, you know, Mike was infusing sci-fi with comedy, right? If he just started the premise with just a straightforward sci-fi, you know, premise, it might give you kind of a generic sci-fi sort of thing, right? But if he does it with a comedic hook, a comedic twist, a weird angle, it's going to approach that as well. And so it's immediately going to hone in on those ideas.
So Daniel, that's fascinating. but you know, again, the AI is sort of a good writing partner. You still have to put your hands on the QWERTY keyboard, do the work, and then you can also reanalyze. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Of course. Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, let's face it, that that's the concern a lot in any creative field, is that it's going to replace us as creators. And this is more like so I buy these books, you know, like A Fiction Writer's Friend, The Conflict Handbook. It's a little bit like a tool like that, which many of us have on our shelves from Writer's Digest. It's not like it's all that different from that. Yes, no, I don't mean to put words in your mouth. But
no, exactly. Again, it's, you know, it's that assistant, that little friend on your shoulder, things like that. The spark that can give you suggestions and all of that. Sometimes it just helps you sort of flesh out your things and get a little bit further. You know, it gives you suggestions on how you could actually go about doing it. And again, you know, right now he's just going through and he's just going for, you know, the basic suggestions. The more of Mike that goes into that, the more it's going to be specialized and figure out, you know, specific suggestions that would be more unusual, more interesting, more your personality and things like that. So it can be a lot of fun. It's fun to try to stump it, right? To create like the most bizarre scenarios and be like, how would you even make that story work, and see what happens, you know?
So let me ask you something. Often, Mike will run into a problem where he starts off with a lot of enthusiasm as a pantser and then loses his way. Meanwhile, I'm a plotter and I literally engineer all the energy out of the story. So give us the plotter's use of this and the pantser's use. Start with me because like I'm selfish and I want to go first.
No,
you didn't get 100 in all your categories.
I mean, obviously, from a plotter standpoint, you might find that to be a really great template just to hold all those ideas, right? And just have it all down and have those note boards. So everything, all your plans, your whatever you do, your designs, your inspiration board, your look board, whatever is all just sitting there on the right-hand side, right? And we have other tools. You didn't show them. We can't show everything, right? But you have other ones that can help you along the way. Like you're mentioning books. Like one thing we have is similar to some of the ones that people have to help describe emotions. And so if you get to a place and you're like, he was happy, and you're like, oh, okay, I want to dramatize that, show don't tell, right? And then you would actually pull it up and it'll say, if you want to convey happiness, these are some suggestions, right? That's not the same thing as a story idea. That's like a writing idea. And as somebody who might get like lost in the weeds, you know, or a little bit, you know, disgruntled at that point, it can just give you that extra boost, right? And
I
then in
love
terms
that.
of
So Andrew Campbell has a question. Mike, read that.
yes,
Was Andrew from?
He's from Australia.
So I'm sorry, Daniel. Mike does a spot on Australian accent, so feel free to.
What's the difference between the free and paid version? Asking for a cheap friend.
sorry, Andrew.
Oh, Mike, it's almost like I'm in Australia right now. So, Daniel, what do you got for us? What's the difference between free and paid?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about the free version is you still have access to the desk, you have access to the note boards and some of the reports, but some of the other things like the story builder, the fiction analyzer, and things like that, those are part of the paid version. But definitely go in and mess around with the free version because as just a free word processor, it's quite impressive in of itself. So,
all right, so we're running out of time here.
And reported.
Reported. All right. So let me just show this real quick. You can get some sort of discount or something.
yes, you can get it's 50% off for the for the first 2 weeks. So it's a great way to just get great way to dip your toes in.
Yeah, jump in and test it, see what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we don't get any money out of this, so it's not like we're. But try it; it's free. I mean, I have to tell you, Mike, I enjoyed using. I'm going to keep using it because I want to see if I can make some of my.
You're shooting for that 100.
I'm just shooting to complete something this year, and I'm on track with nothing.
Well, see, I think this is a good way to help you complete it because it gives you that inspiration that's like, okay, I'm going to try another chapter just to see what it pops up with. If I'm doing it right, if I'm doing it wrong, at least it's coming up the way I want it to.
And we didn't get into it, Daniel. I did see there were message boards, writers, people sharing ideas.
Yep.
Last question: can Mike and I collaborate on a document?
No, not currently. Like you can't like both sign in or something and mess around with people's documents, which again, it's your document. But yeah, no, we don't have that. Now, one thing that we do have in terms of you were talking about staying motivated that we didn't get to are accountability tools. So you can set daily word goals. You can use it to use a Pomodoro timer, which people like artists like to do, and things like that. Time writing, time a break, things like that. That's all part of it as well. And it tracks it all for you. So you don't have to be like, how close am I to finishing my project? You can say, what's your ultimate goal, how you're doing, all of that. It does all that for you.
Mike, has anybody ever had to tell you to take a break?
Oh, no.
No, me neither. No one's ever been like, slow down.
Even when they tell me to work harder, I'm always like, what? You said take a break?
I think you said take a break. Let's go to Taco Bell. All right. So, Daniel, this has been great. So, number one, let's just a round of applause for being a great guest. All right. So, Daniel, here's where we put you on the big screen. Daniel, a question that we asked to all of our guests: what is one piece of advice you wish you had received earlier in your career?
It's actually something that I like to give to a lot of my students. You're constantly told the show, don't tell philosophy, right? Which is very good advice, but it kind of comes from the movie world where they have to show you things. And in writing, it doesn't really make sense because you really have to tell everything. So I wish that they would have stated it how I like to say it, which is dramatize, don't summarize. I think that's just a much better way of conveying that. Good piece of advice, just better verbiage.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was and that was more than like a golf clap. That's a tennis. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Daniel, for joining us here tonight. We're going to put you temporarily into the green room. We're almost out of time. We put money in the meter, and we're going to lose our parking spot. So, Daniel, we're going to put you in the green room. Mike, what's waiting inside the green room for Daniel?
We have cheese balls and Campbell's soup.
Actually, that's not bad. So, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. There are cheese balls and tomato soup. We're going to put you temporarily in the green room. Don't log out when we end. We will still be here. So once again, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. You were a great guest. Thank you. And thanks to Becca AutoCrit for making sure that we were able to log in and get our accounts and use this. So thanks again, Daniel.
Thank you.
There you go. He didn't know that part where I didn't want to just drop him out and he would be like gone. He was like, "Thank you, Daniel." He would be like, and then he's gone. So but don't worry, Daniel. You'll pop back in occasionally as we come and go. Oh, Redheaded Ed said, "Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man." So I got to tell you, I was a little nervous about using the tool, but knowing that it is not doing generative AI and that it is based on like business rules, and it's similar in a lot of ways to the books I buy from Writer's Digest, which is, twist and plot and character development and arc. Now I feel a little better. What about you?
I think it's a great program because like I said, it gives you the inspiration. If you do get a little lost, like I don't know where to go, you can always click on the AI generate thing, and it doesn't give you the idea, but it gives you like the kind of a story idea that you can just go, oh, okay, that helps. And then you can move on from there and you go right back to writing.
And what was interesting about it was the interface was very easy to use. So I own Scrivener. I've paid for it. You own Final Cut Pro. There's a learning curve on all of those. It felt like there was no learning curve. I just clicked on things and it kind of figured it out. Yeah.
I think this is something that can really help inspire people to keep things moving along with their, the comics or novels, or, it probably isn't well suited for screenplays exactly, but maybe next version will be, and then plug in your screenplay and go to town.
Yeah. And I was poking around. They have a community. I was poking around the community.
Yeah. And it's always great to talk to other people who have the same issues as you, like for me, just deciding, oh, today I'm going to watch TV instead of write. You can go, how do I not do that? And they can give you some good advice.
Yeah. And for me, it's erectile dysfunction. So I just feel like there was a lot to talk about. A lot of people had a lot of sympathy for me. So
it happens.
It happens more than I'd like to admit. But hey, listen, another great show, Mike. And thanks to everybody for joining us again. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for helping us to get to 10,000. Be sure to tell a friend, tell an enemy, and we will see you again next week. That's not too much information. Too much information one day I will do on the show in our last episode, and then you can report and unsub. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Glenn, thank you, Gatilla.